Hey guys, this is Nina Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Thank you so much for being here. This show is created to discuss life topics, to challenge and transform your thinking. Today, I have Molly Skye Brown here. She is a survivor, a real big time survivor of abandonment, abduction, rape, sexual violence, and so much more. And we're going to unpack that. She has taken her tragedies and she has shifted her own debilitating PTSD symptoms and repeated suicide attempts to help the hundreds of silent survivors she divinely encounters and coaches. Only through her persistent wanting, this actually touched me so much when I read this, Molly. Aww. Only through her persistent wanting to die has she found the courage to live fully. Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
I read that earlier today and I sat in that for a moment and I just started to tear up because I realized that sometimes that is such a reality for some of us, right? That you have to get to that point of wanting to die to realize that you have to live.
Yeah.
You know? So Molly, just to start off, if you don't mind, I always ask everyone to kind of tell us a little bit about themselves.
Sure.
So let's let us know a little bit more about you and then we'll get into talking.
Sure. So I've tried to come up with my log line, like just a real quick synopsis of who I am and what's going on, because it took me many years to even know who I am and what's going on.
Right.
I was born with an acting bug, a singing bug. I really enjoyed being entertaining and performing. When I was in kindergarten, I made the cover of the paper in our local paper for playing two roles in the Nutcracker, the lead, and that wasn't enough so because cool. She's asleep the whole time. So I had to play two roles, which I've done a lot throughout my life. And made the paper there. Right. And it really started things out. And then in second grade, I was in a really weird Catholic school in Monterey at this really creepy mission. But they had this, they got me into modeling, and then I started modeling. And then in fourth grade, I was at a different Catholic school and I started learning my voice. And in fourth grade, I had survived by that time a pedophile that had latched onto me between the ages of 6 to 9 from my neighborhood in Pebble Beach. He was a friend's father. And this is one of the things I really talk about is this not so stranger danger programming, because at the time I was told stranger danger, look for trench coats, that it's strangers. And it was never strangers that were ever preying on me. It was mostly fathers, which never occurred to me. And I wanted to protect these fathers because they had children, they had wives, I didn't want to ruin their lives. I figured they knew something I did at the time. I just could not understand what was happening from the ages of 6 to 9. This man wanted to marry me, impregnate me, and I was like putting baby dolls away, locking them in my closet. I was very afraid of all of that. It was very, very upsetting. And when I was 9, he tricked me into coming over in my school uniform. That's how freaking not understanding what was going on. And yes, he raped me, and his wife came home and she didn't stop it. I came to on the sofa, and then the man told me that I had been dreaming. I'd never been in their house. And suddenly I'm waking up on their sofa with my underwear missing. And then in fourth grade, we moved across the country shortly after that. I felt like destiny and divine intervention just came in and kind of swooped me through and swooped me away, because I figured this man was going to kill me at some point. Come get me, come find me. So we moved from California to Florida, started a new Catholic school, and that's when I discovered I could sing. And I started seeing that God was really woven into the outlet part, the creative outlet part of me, the singing, the acting, performing. And that's where I do a lot of my teaching and educating. So a lot of the projects that I'm working on are educating children through like puppets, or cartoons. I used to want to be Disney voices and voice characters all growing up. So it really started to infuse this outlet of musical theater and performing, and then also extreme abuse that people were missing and not seeing. And then if I confided anyone, like in fourth grade, they were talking about boys, and I'm like, yeah, some dudes did some stuff to me. And all of a sudden I was exiled in school. I was the creepy new girl with way too much going on. And then my teacher started noticing that I was having really bad tics. I was like choking in class, like these really weird OCD things going on due to the trauma that I had sustained, and like really weird blinkings and noises and stuff. I just was having severe PTSD symptoms within a few months. And my teacher noticed it. I got really clingy to her, and she reached out to my mother. And I remember thinking I was so excited and relieved, not excited, but relieved that we might have a conversation. I might be able to tell her now about this guy that no one was seeing in my window, even when I was telling people there's a dude in my window. It was Molly has an active imagination. No one was seeing it. So my teacher called my mom and said, Molly's exhibiting some weird signs. She's not adjusting to the new school. She's really clingy. She's not making friends. So I get in the car, and she told me that she was going to reach out to my mom. She calls my mother. I get in the car, and my mom was nice about it at first. She said, Molly, what's going on? Your teacher called. And I didn't know the words for it. I didn't even know what sex was, let alone rape, let alone pedophiles, let alone all this stuff that was going on. So I told her I didn't know. I wasn't sure. And then she reamed me. She said I was an embarrassment to her, that I was embarrassing her, and I needed to really get a hold of my shit. And I remember feeling really scared at that point, that there was really never going to be a good time to tell anyone what was going on. And then it just started to perpetuate worse and worse and worse. I started reaching adolescence, and then middle school, I started acting out, even though I was doing well. I have physical disabilities. I had some physical experimental surgeries as a child. So I was really fragile and was really not looked after or looked out for. I was not allowed to show externally that I had a handicap. My mom really didn't want me to show that she had it, and I guess she felt that I would be ostracized for it. I need people to see me as vulnerable. Yeah. I need to be seen as a victim sometimes. I am. I hate this whole cancel culture of don't be a victim. And it's like, but I am one, and we need the laws to change so that I can get justice and not be one anymore.
Right.
So in a nutshell, I learned to start singing. In high school, I really started just becoming a brand. I started modeling and acting and singing and doing pageants more and more and more, and really putting on this false face that everything was fine because no one was listening.
You learned how to be an actress too, right?
Yeah, well, I learned how to be an actress, and I felt I had to be perfect in order to be heard and respected and trusted and believed. That if I wasn't perfect, that there were all of these things, well, she's failing in this class, or she's got to be in this class, so now she's a liar. I mean, this was all going through my head. And then in high school, I started getting really big into the singing and got some opportunities, and just met predator after predator after predator, elite, very big billionaire predators that wanted to take me out of the country as a child, calling my house, wanting to have dinner with me. And these are men in their 30s and 40s. And then in 2001, I ended up meeting an Epstein recruiter when I had a nervous breakdown and begged my family to help me get some help in a mental hospital. I know it sounds so horrible.
Right.
But you know what? I've tried to kill myself repeatedly. I have no shame. I didn't do this to myself. And I'm going to speak boldly about it. I went in to get help. I went in hoping people would help me to report. I was failed repeatedly by the system. I believe I was actually sexually assaulted in front of the trafficker, because the woman that I met that was a human trafficker with Epstein and Ghislaine that ended up taking me to an Epstein party in 2001. When I got into the room, she told me, don't trust anyone in this facility. This is Palm Beach Hospital, so in the middle of a pedo nest of trafficking elites. And I'm thinking, what is she talking about? What is this poor girl talking about? She said, they will rape you in your sleep. They'll drug and rape you. And I was like, oh, come on. You need to calm down. Terrified me. Although the first night I woke up to a man injecting me with needles, telling me he was taking my blood and giving me a sedative. And I was already asleep, and I thanked him. And then I have been to facilities since then when I have my suicidal ideations. If I want to leave this place, where is the place for the survivor with statutes of limitations who finally has the wherewithal, the power, the knowledge, the adult maturity to handle the crimes that were committed against her as a child, for a clock that's running out that I don't even know exists, but my perpetrators know exists.
Right.
It's absolutely mental. I feel like I don't belong on this planet. So I want to leave. So and then I went to other facilities, but I never had that same experience of being drugged or medically anything without my conscious knowledge or signing off on something. So it's really concerned me now that I was in that situation, literally trying to get help. I mean, I went a year after a producer abducted and raped me from a business dinner we were supposed to go to. And I ended up flunking out of college at that point. I was a music minor, and I was like, what's the point? These men are terrifying.
Right.
Ended up flunking out of college. I gave up on my dreams. I started working in telecommunications, and I wasn't interested in it. It just was a shift. I was
Right.
agoraphobic, absolutely terrified, and my family would not allow me to be. So it was constantly get a job, get over it, move on, get out of the house, and just
Yeah.
not seeing
Yeah.
how traumatized I was.
Yep.
And then me beating myself up for not being able to handle it all better. But I was abducted from a high school party by a police officer on duty with his squad car. I was not drinking at the time. He struck up a conversation with me because in high school I was also on the debate team and wanted to go into law to protect artists. I wanted to go into entertainment law. And this police officer abducted me from a party. He said he was going to drive me home, and instead he took me to his house, handcuffed me, and sexually abused me until I was absolutely terrified, shaking and crying, telling him about the pedophile from my childhood and that he was absolutely terrifying me. And thankfully he stopped and took me home. But he should have reported too, because my pedophile was still alive at the time. He died a year later.
Yeah, but so was he. He was doing
I know,
damage
and that's
too.
the thing. And that's the thing. Yeah, a sex abuser's, even if he's a cop, he's usually not going to report other crimes that are going
You're
on
right.
while he's assaulting you. So it was just
Right.
repeatedly being failed. And then I finally reached out, with this quarantine. And when Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein started coming in the news, I started getting just a flooding of recall back.
Yeah.
When Ghislaine tried to recruit me from a gym I was working at when I was a teenager, 14 or 15 years old. I remembered her from that instance. She gave me her business card, and I remember thinking, oh God, I hope she doesn't make me say this, because I couldn't repeat it for the life of me. I didn't understand what Ghislaine, even how to pronounce that word. I never even heard of a Ghislaine before.
Right.
And she was dangling Victoria's Secrets to me. And at 14 years old, I had an extreme body shame and scared. Like, Victoria's Secrets was a dream of mine and also a nightmare.
Right.
Because I wasn't about to flaunt my body and put myself in more positions of being sexually assaulted, sexually abused, and hurt. So I turned her down. It went in one ear and out the other. And I'm handicapped, and I've been vetted by all the major modeling scouts at the time of, we can't do runway. If I dislocate, I'll scream profanities. And
Right.
that's not a good show. That's just not a good show.
It's
So
actually probably a good show, but yeah.
it was God protecting me. And I look
Right.
at it back now, because at the time
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell, God? Like, these are all my dreams being presented to me, and I physically unable to do any of it. Now I look back and I absolutely see all the connections there. So there's a lot of my faith that really walks me through all of this. Whereas,
Yeah.
I mean, for many years I was screaming at God and telling Jesus to get the F away from me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand why there was a planet that a God allowed these things to happen, let alone murder
Right.
his son and let children be raped. So I was like, I don't get this place. Just tried to tune it all out and skate through however I could.
Yeah.
And then I had a massive awakening and reported to the FBI last year about my recall and started making police reports. And to my horror, I can't do anything about it. And if I talk up, I can get sued. And I've already gotten a cease and desist by outing my producer. And he's hired a PR firm to try to silence me. And it's just been a shit
That's
show.
a lot, Molly. That's a lot, right?
It's insane.
Let's go back a bit, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to go back to, because I feel like had you been listened to from day one, it would have prevented a lot of the shit, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
everything, but a lot of it.
And it would have given my family an opportunity to really come together in a beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah. And protect you, right? And you
Yeah.
would have felt protected,
Yeah.
guided.
And I never did.
know?
Not
Right.
even by God. And now I see
Right.
that I was, but I was
Right.
like, what the hell?
Right. I know. I was the same. He's a big God though. He can handle it,
Exactly.
He can handle our tantrums and our
Oh,
fits.
yes. And the wrath of God is upon us. And it's a beautiful apocalypse. And
Right.
the laws are getting changed. Karma's going to be, there's a lot going on spiritually.
Karma's coming. Things are
Yeah.
coming. Yeah, for
Karma's
sure.
a beautiful thing.
You said that your first perpetrator, his wife came home. She saw this and didn't say anything?
Yeah, when I came to on the sofa, she was cutting onions in the kitchen, and I could hear them kind of being stressed to one another. And I didn't understand why she wasn't acknowledging me or helping me. Like I said, I'd never been in their house
Right.
before.
Well, you're a child. Yeah.
Right.
You're not expected to know.
And apparently this man was addicted to porn, so they knew he was a problem. He's a massive alcoholic, a veteran. So I had a lot of sympathy for him. As an empath, I saw
Right.
his light, I saw his damage, and I had the utmost compassion and empathy and sadness for him. And he preyed on that, and really took inappropriate action, seeing me as a savior or a thing. I don't know. He told me the day he raped me, he told me I was his gift from God, and that made me hate God at that point for a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
long
because
time.
he's sick, right? Because he's
Oh
sick.
yeah.
And
Oh, he
not
also
just
told
him,
me. Well,
yeah,
the
his
day
wife
of, he
too.
told me that my family could be doing this to me. And then it created a huge wedge between my family, that my brothers could prey on me or my father could hurt me sexually. And
Right,
it just
right.
created this huge divide.
Right, because your little brain doesn't know any better, right?
It's
Your brain is
shattered
like,
in, yeah.
first of all, yeah, I was just gonna say that it shatters your brain, your thought process, the trauma that comes in and causes that split
Yeah.
into what you logically can know to this
Yeah.
like damaged emotional place.
Yeah.
And that is a really hard place to be, right? And so by just even your story about what you've said about even trying to take your own life, that's the kind of damage this stuff does. And I know that you say you work with kids, which is phenomenal. And I wish that more people would pay attention to the kids, because kids don't just change because
No.
there's always something,
And
right?
that's what
Whether
I was
it's too much
always missing.
bullying or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
And
Yeah.
that's what was always missing in my case. We go to therapy and my parents were convinced I was the problem. And the therapist
Yeah.
would say, no, a child is never the problem. They are reacting to something. And my
Right.
parents were so defensive that it was them when it really wasn't them, but they were perpetuating by not listening to me or believing my issues. And
Right.
I wasn't able to get into large conversations about it because, like I said, the day I came home, I was in a bad mood and I was not allowed to be in a bad mood. I wasn't.
Right.
It was,
Right.
we don't want to see your face, go to your room until it changes, and then you can come back and be around us. And we don't want to hear why. It's irrelevant why. We don't want to hear it. Be bigger than it. And it's like, I don't know what to do with this right now. Like, my mind is breaking more
Yeah.
that I can't even
Yeah.
tell you. I came
Right.
home from the event thinking, oh, wow, he has crossed the line. He's in so much trouble, and I'm going to tell my family. And then I ended up sleeping at the dinner table in my school uniform with no underwear on, laying looking at the moon going, what the hell, God? What is happening?
Right.
And then
Yeah.
the next day, so the guy tricked me in by, he told me he was going to give me this rabbit fur that he told me he skinned it himself. I wanted the rabbit fur to be buried. I wanted it away from him. I knew he touched himself with it. He was very disgusting and inappropriate with it. And the day that he lured me in, he said he was going to give me that rabbit fur. We were moving across the country shortly later. We were selling our house. So he said he had a present for me. So I had to wear my school uniform to get it. So I went over there, endured that, didn't get the rabbit fur. He ended up telling me my little brother had it, and I ran into my little brother on my way home who had it, and that's why I was in the bad mood chasing him. So the next day I tell my mother, because I have wounds down there, like
Right.
my underwear is sticking to me, which I know that sounds horrific, but this is reality.
Reality.
I had cuts down there. I had hurt down there. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't even know I had 2 holes, let alone 3 down there. So
Right.
I didn't
Right.
know my own anatomy. So I remember the next day, my mother telling me she was having me fold laundry with her and scolding me for my bad attitude the day before. And we went into my little brother's room and the rabbit fur was on his dresser. And I remember saying to my Mom, I need to talk to you. Can I talk to you? And she said, if it has to do with that rabbit fur, I don't want to hear it.
Wow.
And I didn't know how else to tell her what had happened to me if I could never tell her about the rabbit fur. So I just pushed it down for many, many, many years. We went to family therapy when I would act out and lash out and regress back to younger ages, slamming doors, freaking out over the slightest touch or the slightest misunderstanding. And yeah, it was a missed opportunity with the therapist because their screening is so terrible
I know.
of asking a child certain questions that I felt so missed by it. I ended up becoming hypervigilant towards kids. I became an amazing babysitter and really hypervigilant of seeing when kids seem traumatized like myself and really coming to them and working with them. And then that manifested into high schools. I was performing Disney shows for kids at their elementary schools, and I was a nanny in college. So it seems like it's coming full circle that I meant to keep working with kids, educate kids. I have a singing voice. I had voice coaches and voice training all through college and high school and in some middle school and elementary school. So I'm finding my place now, but I mean, God, for 20, 30 years, I have felt dead.
Yeah. And it does do that, right? I mean, it strips something from you. It really does strip something from you. And I'm
My
always encouraging
innocence.
people. Yeah. And the damage, I mean, just that damage, not just physically, because physically is bad enough, but it's that mental tear that happens that just is so freaking hard to just get through.
That
right?
my no means nothing. That me saying no means nothing is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. It made me so
Yeah.
agoraphobic. I stopped chasing my dreams after that producer in college when I was 22. It was the last person I trusted and decided to trust.
Well, yeah, I mean, all it does is revert you back to the 6-year-old, right?
Yep.
Because you're 22, you're thinking, okay, I got this.
Yeah, right.
And then you get sexually assaulted. You're like, fudge.
Right.
No, I'm like back to being 6,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
With nobody protecting
Fetal
you,
position
nobody
in my
listening.
bed. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Nobody
Flunked
listening.
out of
And
college.
that's the problem right there is why isn't anybody freaking listening?
I
Because we
post
want
all
this
the
perfect
time.
freaking life and we don't want to look at things that are hard.
And thank
you
God
know?
I found you. I mean, God, I just found you, yesterday or the day before through
Yeah, the day
me
before, I think.
screaming on LinkedIn. And I get told by LinkedIn, I'm the bully. I'm the harasser.
I
By outing
love your message.
sexual
Love it.
predators. Oh, thank you. I get
Love it.
ignored a lot. I guess people don't believe me, which I made a blog because I have all my photographs in there. Like, I mean, I have the most insane recall, first of all, because at the time I was like, this is not happening again. This is not happening again
Right.
and again and again and again, to the point where I would just write it all down in my brain and say, at some point, people will hear me, people will understand, and I just did not know how to communicate.
Right.
How do you tell someone in so many words what's going on?
Right.
The first
Right.
time I was abducted in Monterey, a neighbor across the street, both her boys had tried to rape me already. And my mother said, boys will be boys, stay away from them. I was like 6 or 7. They shoved me down. I went over to see their toys for the first time. They shoved me down, ripped my legs apart, were trying to take my tights off and telling my brother to get involved. And my brother ripped them off of me and said, oh my God, Molly, run home. And I ran home thinking, oh my God, my mom's going to do something. No. She said, don't go over there again. Boys will be boys. They play too rough. Stay safe, whatever the hell that means.
Right.
And then a couple months later, the mother abducted me from a neighbor's yard. I was next door trying to talk to my girlfriend, seeing if she was home. She wasn't there, so I was just kind of waiting in her front yard for her to show up. The mother of these 2 boys is out in her driveway, and I'm not allowed to talk to them. I'm not allowed to go over there, but I'm also like 7. So
Right.
I'm supposed to navigate this with an adult and be like, sorry, I can't talk to you.
Right.
And so she goes, Molly, come here. I want to show you something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
shit. What do I do?
Right.
Ignore you? Pretend I don't hear you? You're 10 feet away from me. So
Right.
I just kind of ignored her. She was like, what are you doing? I was like, I was waiting for my friend. She was like, well, come here. And I was like, oh, they're going to be home soon. She's like, come here. I just want to show you something. And I'm, what, be disrespectful? Does not compute. Not allowed. I'm in Catholic school. I'm like subservient. Are you kidding? So I
Right.
go over there. I figure I'm safe if I'm just in her front yard. So she shows me this bucket of water, and it's full of mosquito larvae, which immediately fascinates me. I love science. I love biology. I used to catch little critters and watch things all the time. And then people would hurt me. So I learned to never enjoy anything I'm doing because I could lose track
Right.
of the predators trying to hurt me. So she shows me this bucket, and then I'm like just totally enthralled by it. And all of a sudden she goes, Molly, I have your parents' permission. I have your mother's permission to take you to the aquarium today. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? That sounds amazing. She said, it's just you and I. We're going to have fun. The boys aren't coming. Your brothers aren't coming. No one's coming. It's just going to be you and me. And I'm like, you have my mom's permission? Like, that sounds so crazy. And yet I trust this is a neighbor.
Yeah, right. It's an adult.
It's
right.
a mother in my neighborhood that lives across the street from me. So I get in the car with her. She tells me, let's get in the car. Let's go. So I get in the car with her. And I'm thinking we're going to pull into my driveway, get my sweater, pack a lunch, say goodbye to my mom. Nope. Zip zoop right out of the neighborhood. And at that point I'm like, oh shit, I think I'm in big trouble. Like, I didn't check in with my mom. This is not right. This is really scary. So then we get to the aquarium and I'm like, okay, maybe everything's on the up and up and I'm not being kidnapped. Because again, kidnapping was just strangers. It was never the mother across the street with kids. So we get to the aquarium and I'm this little white girl and she is a woman in a burqa from Iran and she's telling me to call her mom. And I'm like, why? I don't understand why you can't just be my neighbor that's taking me to the aquarium. Why do I have to call you mom? So I went along with it at first. I was like, acting. We're acting. So I was like, hey, mom. And then she started getting a little rough with me, telling me I had to stay in this one area and that we're waiting for a man, that I would never heard about a man coming, that we were waiting in this one area for 15, 20 minutes for this man to come and I wasn't allowed to wander away. She pulled me down and made me sit right next to her. And at that point I was like, nobody does that. That's not normal. No one's allowed to do that. So I pulled away from her and I was like, this has changed. Like, the energy's changed. And then I started moving away from her and she started acting all sweet again. She's like, okay, sweetheart, just stay right here in this area. And I was like, this is scary. So I moved away a little bit, started looking at some of the aquarium pieces, like some of the tank stuff. And I noticed this woman with her daughter was standing next to me, and I was just like disassociating, didn't know what to think, didn't know what to do. What do I do? And this woman looked at me, she's like, "Are you okay?" And I looked at her and I said, "I don't think so." I said, "That's not my mom, and she's telling me to call her mom." And thank God this woman did something. She alerted authorities at the aquarium, freaked out my friend, my neighbor. She suddenly grabs me. She goes, "Oh, Molly, we have to go. Your mom's waiting for you." And I'm like, okay. So then we get home, we race home, we get to my house. There's police in my driveway because now I'm missing. My friends come home and she calls. She's like, "Where's Molly?" And my mom's like, "I thought she was at your house." So I get to my house. There's like a couple cop cars in my driveway. I'm freaking out at this point. I'm like, oh my God, I can't. There's a man that wants to impregnate me here. This woman wants to, I guess I'm her daughter now.
She's probably going to sell you. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I had no idea that was a thing at the time. So I just reported that last year too. Yeah. I found out Monterey is a huge trafficking location.
Wow. You got to be some sort of sick, right, to have children and still do that to other children.
That's
a
whole
nother level of sick.
Oh my God, I know.
It's a whole nother level.
And that's what they get away with. They hide under their children. My producer hides behind his children. He's got these 2 children that he uses as profile pictures and this and that. And it's like, oh, he's a saint producer, man, with the kids. They hide behind normalcy.
Yeah. Well, and that's what they use as leverage to make you the crazy person.
And,
right?
Yeah, and to gain your trust and make you feel safe. Yeah. And then gaslight the shit out of you.
And then gaslight the shit out of you.
It was all swept under the rug. It was a miscommunication. Nobody interviewed me. The police did not interview me. My mother finally came in and said, "We're not going to talk about anything. It's I guess she was too traumatic." Sometimes I'm like, did my mom sell me? Was my mom involved because of how little she did to help or see anything?
Right. No, that's a safety mechanism, right? That's not facing things on when you don't want to, I know, I hope so too. But I think when you don't want to face things, like when my father molested me, I remember when he touched me and I was so mortified. So I was like maybe 6 years old or so. And I remember it all. But I remember telling my mom, and she bent down to my face and she said, "Shut up and stop lying," right? So she hates that I say that story. She hates that I say that. Me and my mom are in a good place now, but she does hate that story.
We may come back around, but we are not. I'm so glad you two are.
I mean, we're not in like La La Land, but we're communicating.
It is what it is.
Truth be told, I had to get to a point in my life where I just forgave regardless, because it was poisoning me. I have PTSD, I have insomnia, I have paranoia. I mean, it was really bad, right? It was really bad because it happened for a couple of years, and it traumatizes you. As you know, you've been through this, right? So,
and the fact that it's your father, it's so hard to forgive. I go back and forth with forgiveness. Some of them I'm able to forgive because I had connections and relationships with them, so I was able to see the flawed person that they are and really try to forgive that flaw. And then there's others that take no accountability that I didn't know at all, and those are the hardest to forgive.
That's the hardest. And that's the thing. Like he didn't really take any accountability for it and was always in denial. The family still invited him over, that kind of stuff. It was like, just get over it, and the truth be told is I had to forgive him for me. I could not live like this anymore. And I'm
I chose to forgive myself and then just let that radiate out. I forgive me.
You do beat yourself up.
That's all I did. I forgave the rapist. I forgave every rapist that I was too pretty. It was me. It was my fault. Even though I never thought I was all that pretty. I mean, I thought I was pretty, but not thin enough, not good enough for the levels that I was really shooting for. And then I'd get raped and abducted and all this stuff. I mean, I used to wear button shirts to here, socks over my pants and a sweater on top of a sweater for school pictures, and then was still preyed on. So I felt really guilty. I felt it was me. It was all my fault that I was attracting these monsters and I didn't know how to stop it. Then I gained weight thinking that they were going to leave me alone. And then you don't get work because the industry is so damn shallow. So I had to learn to just forgive myself. I forgave all of them before I ever forgave myself.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true, Molly. And I think we all do that, right? It's a really tough thing to forgive yourself. It is truly hard and something you have to get up every day and kind of do.
Make a commitment every day. Yeah. Every day I have a pep talk in the mirror and I have to choose, are we going to feel defeated or are we going to choose a higher vibration and choose that we are victors? And maybe it doesn't look like it yet, but it's in the works. Maybe it's already happened, but I haven't realized it.
Yeah.
So I have to work I do everything from the highest dimension now. I fight from the sky. I fight from the highest dimensions.
I love that.
Go
Fight
in.
from
Yeah.
the
Well, it's
sky.
in the Bible
Good.
too. And I was
Yes.
really like, screw all of these men that are writing all these laws that
Right.
women were trafficking. I mean, they were property
Right.
back then. We can finally have a bank account of our own due to the 70s. Like, this
Yeah, but you know what? Good
hasn't been free long.
husbands in the Bibles didn't treat their wives like that,
Thank
right?
God.
So good husbands in the Bible didn't, and I think that's why you have to always take the Bible in full context.
Absolutely,
because
for the time.
even Jesus didn't either. He never treated women like that.
Exactly,
ever.
and that's what I really
Ever.
focused on. What was he doing? What was he doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And I've had
He's
this
the best
conversation-
example.
He is, and I try to aspire. What would Jesus do in these situations? And I'm not always Jesus. I have a lot of wrath in me, and I don't need to be perfect all the time. But I do need to tune in and say, is this going to negatively affect what I'm doing? And that's a choice. The wrath that I have it all has consequences, and a lot of times as a victim, we don't want to feel that there are any consequences, but there's a lot of earth laws that are nonsensical that you can trigger.
Yeah.
And part of my mission is to change laws, end statutes of limitations, empower and encourage people to speak up so that we have safer environments. I also coach survivors into feeling safe with intimacy. I was frigid for 13
wow, that's
years.
amazing.
13 years, I was terrified of my own
I was going to ask you
husband.
about that. That's good. Yeah.
Absolutely terrified of him. I would have panic attacks. I would cry. I had a fear of beds. So, and I didn't realize this for the longest time, that I ended up being not voyeuristic, but because I didn't want anyone seeing me. But when we would engage in our lovemaking, it had to be near an audience so that if I could scream, I would be safe. So if someone needed to rescue me, and no one knew, I mean, this is like my husband and I slip into a bathroom and I'm like, I feel safe here, versus the bed I've been pinned to too many times.
Right.
I don't feel safe there. I had an aversion to them. And, our wedding night, I had panic attacks and bowel issues. I was just terrified of my own husband. We were frigid for 13 years. He thought I hated him. Thankfully, we have one miracle child because I wanted children more than anything. The whole pregnancy sent me through amazing PTSD. I had high blood pressure, 200 over 100 almost the entire time.
Wow.
Oh, it was terrifying. And luckily I had a C-section, but I was very frightened of people having to look at my vagina or something coming out of it. I've done so much work to overcome this, but it wasn't mostly with therapies. It was finding Jesus. In 2015, I had a powerful spiritual awakening and found some mentors on Facebook to really open up that world. My mother grew up raising me on Abraham Hicks, enduring virtue, while I was being hardcore Catholic and marrying Jesus in second grade and eating his body and blood and rituals. And it's like, I have questions, sister so-and-so. They're like, put your hand down. And it's like, this is a bit weird. But it seemed to make a ritual, a communion. So I was able to really trust that maybe there were some angels around me to talk to me, and I noticed Archangel Michael was around me, and I acknowledged him. And I was at the point where I was like having nervous breakdowns, wanting to kill myself, wanting to leave. Nothing seemed real. So I just kind of went with it. I was like, what could go wrong talking to an angel? What could go wrong talking to whatever? And then the first thing they taught me was discernment, so that you know what you're talking to. And I appreciated that. But Archangel Michael was telling me, you have to move. Your energy holds you hostage when you're in anxiety. It paralyzes you. And when your energy is paralyzed, you're not interacting, you're not connecting. You kind of like have what Jesus is explaining to me. You like a fart around you. There's like a fart of terror energy around you that literally is telling the universe, leave me alone, I'm terrified. And the only one who can really get through that is Jesus, and you have to allow him. There's a come to Jesus. There's this whole, because he has his own karmic debts. If he forces himself onto you, then he gets in trouble. So there's all of these really interesting Gnostic esoteric laws that I found really interesting as a forced Catholic that had no choice in learning all the stuff I was learning, never was allowed to question anything. So I became investigative of what is this God and why would he allow me to be hurt like this? And I've come to this whole future revelation now where I'm coaching and encouraging people to find their faith. It's within them. The kingdom is within. Everything is within. And teaching and empowering and speaking up. Jesus was a speaker. He was a rebel. He flipped tables.
He did. He did. And I was gonna. That's when you were saying that, I was saying that. Well, he got you for this moment, like right
Yeah.
now, right? Because the truth is our stories are supposed to be used to impact somebody else's life.
Our
That's what it's
testimony.
for.
Yep.
It's not for us to be silent. It's not for us to be quiet. It's not for us
Yep.
to be in fear.
Yep.
That story is what is going to help somebody who is going through something very similar or the same thing to
Yeah.
say, I can survive this and I don't have to kill myself. How many people kill themselves and succeed? Like they succeed at the suicide. And I feel so sad because I'm always like, there was something going on there. How did somebody miss that?
I am very in tune with suicidal energy. Totally.
Yeah.
I can read it in people so quickly because I first felt it as a child.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. When I was little, I used to say, just let me die. I used to
I'm
scream. Like, I was Catholic as well. So I used to be like,
sure.
just let me die.
Same.
And I just remember when I was 13, I drank a whole bottle of pills. I just wanted to die. And it just felt like that was the right thing to do. It wasn't.
Same.
Because God is bigger. God is
Well,
so
you
much
were meant
bigger.
to do something bigger, and not to shame those committing suicide, and I don't want to encourage it either.
Of course not.
But everyone who completes their mission, whether it's suicide or dying in a 9/11 tower, you have signed up to be a bigger part of a bigger picture and to bring attention to situations. So no one dies in vain.
Right.
If you survive your suicides, then you're meant to do these greater things. And please don't even attempt. The whole goal now is to see that suicide really isn't the answer. Living is the answer, and living with intention and purity and speak and purpose. And then all of a sudden that's your life, and it's so empowering and so purposeful. In 2015, when Archangel Michael told me, he said, you need to go for a walk. You need to move your energy. It's so stuck on you. I was paralyzed in bed for months, weeks. I was just waiting to die, and I wasn't. So I finally went for a walk, and as I was walking, my energy shifted, because it does. It's, if you fart and you stay in it, you're in a fart cloud. If you fart and you walk away, you're not in your fart cloud anymore. So I was on this walk, and while I'm on this walk with my son, I was going to the park with my son. I was homeschooling at the time because he was being bullied, and as a bully survivor, I was like, nope, I'm not going to keep you there in abuse. We'll do it from the gentle, loving home environment. So we were going for a walk to the playground, and I saw Jesus sitting under a tree. Mm-hmm. I saw Jesus in my third eye, which is like a projection, which is what I learned surviving so much death as a child with experimental surgeries at 18 months, again, when I was 3. And then when I was in a full body cast, I was thrown into a pool, and then the rapes, and then the subsequent abuse and everything. So I've had so many near-death experiences. I feel like I've walked between worlds so long. I've been able to interact with ghosts. I've had weird encounters in dreams. I've had weird understandings. I had an imaginary friend, which I've learned is Jesus, when I was very, very little. And that imaginary friend would show me my husband's face so that I knew the face to trust as an adult. God showed me the same face again when I was 16 and had escaped another predator who I thought I was safe around. He was my hairstylist who did my hair for pageants. I thought he was gay. Turns out I don't know if he was or not, but he was putting the moves on me, and I was 16. Right. And he was in his 30s, and God showed me his face that day as a hope, as an inspiration to keep going and not give up, that there's a transcendence here. There's another side that I just was not seeing. And even right now, I sometimes have problems seeing it because I'm still in that birth canal of birthing it. But so I saw Jesus, and I hadn't seen him in many, many years. And my immediate reaction in this, I call it spiritual charades, is what I see. It's so hard to explain, but it's like a flashback. If you've had flashbacks, it's the same kind of thing. It's very interrupting of your reality, and it's like an overlay of a movie. So I'm seeing Jesus sitting under this tree, and he's meditating and floating, and his eyes are closed, and he opens his eye, and he looks at me, and I said, "Where the hell have you been?" And he looked at me, and he said, "I have been here the whole time. You turned around." And that really pissed me off at first because he knew why I turned around. But that was irrelevant. I did turn around. I had the free will to completely say, I'm on my own, God. I'm on my own, Jesus. Leave me the F alone. It's called free will. I don't know if it was the best advice for myself as a 9-year-old to make that decision. But I remember the day I told Jesus to leave me alone. His body was on a gigantic crucifixion, and it was so terrifying what he looked like that I told him he was frightening me. And at the time, I could kind of make a connection that he was the imaginary friend ghost that I was seeing. because he would show me his face, and I would see just his eyes, and then I would see the beard and the long hair, and I was like, are you a boy or a girl? I hadn't seen someone with that long of hair. And he would say, I'm a friend, and I would call him friend Ghosty. But yeah, so at 9 years old, I told Jesus to go away, and he respected it. He stayed from a distance because we were connected through the weird marriage in second grade. But that's what I believed later on when I would read the book of Revelation, because I've read it since second grade, was that he would be coming again, and that he'd be coming for the brides of his church. And when I would ask Jesus or God, why do I have to go through all of this, and what do these certain things mean? I would see me and other people who were forced into these conditions or in situations or contracts on earth to do these things. And then the same, the meek shall inherit. I used to ask God all the time, who are the meek? And I would see me, and I would see other people like me in the dark, scared people. And we're all talking now. One of the hashtags I use are the meek are speaking. Are you listening?
That's good. Now you say you're coaching people. Now, are you just coaching women that are victims? Do you have,
I get a lot of men.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
I do.
Is there a certain age, or do you do kids as well, or how do you work that?
So the kids, I'm working on developing a puppet. I would love to get Sesame Street involved, on bringing on a puppet, a monster that lives in its own disassociated world I need to bring on a child psychologist also, so that we really make sure we're not traumatizing, that we're educating. But at the same time, it's almost like you need to talk to your baby in the womb, because predators will prey on them before they can even speak. And then it's happened before they've even talked. And then you're telling them something they've already experienced is shameful, they should tell. So when my mom started educating me, I had already met some monsters. I have pictures of me very angry faced because I couldn't express what was going on. I didn't understand that sitting on a man's lap in the back seat of the car and his thumb in between my legs, that he was aware of him doing that. I made every excuse in the book that he must not be aware that that's where his hand is. They're very aware that's where their hand is. That's called grooming.
Yeah.
But I had no idea what grooming was at the time. So I'm trying to find a way. So I'm trying to find a way to educate kids without terrifying them, but also really disrupting the system with education, being so educated and smart that you never have the experiences I had.
Yeah.
And then we disrupt the whole thing and starve the beast.
Exactly. And I think that it has to really start also with the parents, right? Or with the adults. Because if they don't listen, it doesn't matter how much you educate that child. If the adult is not freaking listening. And I always used to tell, he said, but I don't don't tell me you don't believe them. That's bullshit. At least investigate.
Absolutely.
Kids don't just pull stuff out of the air and invent this kind of stuff.
That's the thing. People are trying to say the kids have wild imaginations. Kids don't have sexual imaginations unless they have been introduced to sex.
Exactly. Like I see a wild imagination of him thinking the floor is lava. Okay.
Right. That's normal. A kid knows what lava is. A kid can't imagine something it doesn't know about. So if it's imagining sexual things, then it's been taught sexual things. You can't imagine something you don't know exists.
Right, exactly. And when our little brains, when you're 6, 7 years old, you actually don't know it exists. Nobody's talked to you about it yet.
You're a sponge, and you trust.
And so, because people have them around, right? They're your parents' friends, or
well, look what you just said. They invite them back around, so you think you're in the wrong for even. I'm in the wrong.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. This anxiety. I wake up with debilitating anxiety every morning, which I'm sure you do too, from your own childhood of waking up back into your own reality every day that was unsafe. As a 43-year-old woman, I still wake up to that because I have this preconceived notion that every time I speak up, I could get sued. I could get, my mother used to tell me, don't come against these predators of yours because they're billionaires or they're elite or they're this or they're that.
They have the right to be predators then.
At some point, I have to just say, do what you will with me then, and I'll make an example of myself. I'll make a documentary and a Lifetime movie about it if it gets laws changed. I'm willing to do that because I can't sit by
I'm
anymore.
sure you're going to have a lot of people loving that new book coming out, huh?
Yeah, I hope so.
It's going to free you. It's going to free you, Molly. And if it's only for the audience of one, if it's only for you, then it's for you. You know what I'm saying?
It definitely is for me. It's a promise I made to myself as a child that I would do this thing. And now I'm an adult and I'm like, I still feel like that child, so I get
Right.
nervous. But
Yeah.
now
No,
I've
you got it. You
hired
got
I've
this.
hired another book coach to get me through the finish line. I really have thought about it so long, and I just met you the other day, so I've got to add your book to my reading material. But thank you for
Oh,
writing your own story. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for inviting me. I have felt invisible,
so glad.
ostracized. I have been shamed and shunned for
Right.
surviving.
Right, right. But that's okay because you got Jesus on your side and you got your mind is still intact and right. And
Yeah.
you keep doing what you're doing because there's somebody out there right now who needs your voice and needs to
Yeah.
hear what you have to say, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to always be everybody's cup of tea. You're not going to always
No.
be somebody that everybody likes. Oh, freaking well. Oh,
Yeah,
well.
that's okay.
Right?
That's
Yeah,
okay.
it's okay.
I've always liked me. No, most people didn't like me. I ate lunches alone and usually ate in
Right.
the bathroom and just hid. And I just, I learned to just really love myself and hang out with myself and just make next plans. And I work really well off of spite. So when someone says I can't do something, I'm like, oh, just you wait,
Oh,
wait
yeah,
till
I'm
you
the
see it.
same.
And not only will I do it, I'll make sure it's in the damn paper.
Right. I'm the same. I'm like,
I
oh, I can't do that. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Well, so last year I started remembering the stuff with the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, and Prince Andrew's PR team and his wife Sarah Ferguson, her aide reached out to me in over Christmas, wanting to discuss a piece of blackmail that I'm privy to. I know enough survivors to know the history of this piece of blackmail. And so this PR team from Pagefield, Mark Gallagher, who is the founder of Pagefield, which is an elite PR firm that likes to exonerate pedophiles that have been outed or alleged or whatever. And so he reached out to me, and if you Google my name, Molly Skye Brown, Mark Gallagher, Prince Andrew, you'll see after he reached out to me, he had to step down because I alerted the media and the FBI everything he was telling me and wanting to do. And I told him, first and foremost, I said, I know survivors of Prince Andrew. I know he's a pedophile. I know a slave of his with documents and eugenic children. I know so many of his survivors. If we can't have a conversation about that, I can't help you.
Right.
And so yeah, so I'm very proud of that. That's
You
because
should
these are
be.
these spin doctors with millions of billions of dollars to annihilate anyone that speaks up.
Right.
And God has made that happen. That man now stepped down. He's the founder and he's stepped down. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that.
Well, you should be, right? I think anything that you can fight for the rights of others is going to be always on your side, regardless
Yeah.
if you are popular or not.
Exactly.
You have to fight for the right of others and you have to use your story to impact their life. I mean, that's literally what this is about, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what this platform is about too. Like, I need to speak to people who want to impact somebody else's
Yeah.
life.
Yep.
And that's what it's about. Like, I don't care if you agree or disagree, and you might not like everything, and that's okay. It's okay. You have the right not to, but we also have the right to speak the truth. And
Yep.
we also have the right to impact somebody's life, even if it's not yours. Somebody else will be watching.
Yep.
You know,
I've been
so-
branded a troll, a bully, a liar, a harasser, crazy Molly, and I just keep going. I
Well,
use
you
it
have
all.
to be, Molly. You have to be called those things because then how can your story be verified, right?
Well, one of the stories
they
that
have to
came
make
out
you
was-
unverifiable first, right?
Well, one of the stories that came out when I was trying to work with the media on exposing some of the stuff with the Prince Andrew stuff and this one trafficker girl who's claiming she's a pure victim, but she keeps silencing victims that are coming forward that know her as a trafficker. And, the media was calling me a troll, that I was trolling survivors. And it's like, no. Survivors that traffic other people are not really survivors. They're part of the problem. And we've been glorifying these Epstein ex-employees, ex-recruiters as the storytellers when really they're controlling the narrative and hiding other parts of the beast. The trafficking system alone in just the United States is $150 billion a year industry exporting sex crimes. It is a $53 trillion a year industry globally.
Wow. Check that out.
That is disturbing.
That is so disturbing. So disturbing. And I hope that, Molly, that, I wish you much luck in your
Thank
your
you.
endeavors and what you're doing and in writing your book and speaking
you.
out and fighting for the right of others. Amazing. Amazing, Molly.
Thank you,
Kudos to you.
Nina.
Bravo. Bravo to you.
Thank you.
Bravo. So I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for giving us all of your time and your strong voice.
Thank you.
I love on your Instagram page, it says, I yell at rapists and I change laws. I saw that. I was like, holy shit, she's a firecracker. I love it. So thank you for that. I'm grateful for you. I'm
Thank you. I
grateful
think
for
I just
you.
updated that yesterday, so maybe I'll go put it back up. I'm like, maybe that's a little too intense.
I'm an intense kind of girl, though, so I resonated with it. So I was like, wow, this girl is fire. So good for you, Molly.
Totally. Thank you so much,
Thank
Nina.
you.
It's such a
I'm
pleasure to
glad.
connect with people like you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And guys, thank you so much for watching and spending this time with us. We really appreciate your time. And Molly, if you have like a site or something that people can like follow you and join you and
Sure.
support you in this cause, can you let us know what that is?
Yeah, so it's I think it's www.kajabi.com and / Molly Skye Brown. I don't know what the actual handle is, but I can send
Right.
you because I didn't pay for just a regular link. I should again. I did a couple years ago and then I took a break. But yeah, it's Kajabi Molly Skye Brown. I have my blog on there where I name all the names of all of the abusers. It's on my blog. You can Google hashtag Me Too Much, Molly Skye Brown, and I have an entire outline that I send to media, producers, agents, and really powerful people who are addressing this and not ignoring the problem and making documentaries. I'm working with Hulu, Fremantle Productions, Nancy Grace right now on several different documentaries talking about the Me Too movement, rape culture, and human trafficking and how to end it and
Good for
make
you.
a habitable earth for all.
Good for you. Good for you. And good
Thank
for
you.
you and those future babies that are going to be protected because of it.
Yes,
Good for
thank
you.
you.
Good for you.
Thank
Guys,
you.
thank you so much for being here on Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Go ahead and leave any comments, anything that you want to ask me or maybe Molly, and I'll let her know that you asked. Also, you can follow Molly. So it's Molly Skye Brown. You'll probably could find her on Instagram as well under that social media handle, and on Kajabi under Molly Skye Brown. So I encourage you guys to read her blog, read her story, see what this is all about, and how we can all help disrupt human trafficking.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being.
All right, I'm going to go. But I just want to say really quick, I think we're still live. I also have a podcast, Let's Be Frank. It's on Apple Music and it's on YouTube. Oh, you disappeared really quick.
Weird. I'm like, hello, it's my
I'm the
broadcast.
host of the show now.
You're so great. You took over. What were you saying? What were you saying?
Oh, I was saying that I have a podcast, Let's Be
Oh, great.
Frank.
Okay.
Frank is Jesus, because when he showed up, I was like, I don't want to call you that. And he was like, well, what's the funniest name you can think of? And I said, Frank. And then after 3 days, we reconciled some things. But yeah, so it's Let's Be Frank on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube.
Awesome. I'm sorry. I was like there and then I wasn't. I'm like, hello.
I have a lot of mass media skills. I did the morning announcements all through high school. So I'm like, oh, we're live. Okay, hey.
The funny thing is like the thing pops up and goes, you're still on the broadcast. I'm like, I know I am. I love freaking media, I swear. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. I love Molly too. She just went right into it like, and what you'll do is
I'm on with the show.
so funny. Guys, thank you so much. Nina Perez, Straight Talk, No Sugar Added. Until next time.